To this day, you've got people coming from all over the world. The Chinese, who are grappling with serious environmental crises, are coming to the United States to learn not just about the substance of these laws, but how citizens galvanized and mobilized to make that happen. And I might remind you that many of these laws passed in the early 70s happened on Richard Nixon's watch. But what that says is that oftentimes it really does not matter who is in office. When you have a movement that is powerful, that is strong, that's moving fast, the politicians will usually follow. The saying is, you get out of the way, or you do what we say. And so to me, I think it's a very important lesson, because the Earth is going to be here. It's always going to be here. If we mess it up, we're the ones that won't be around, but this great Earth is going to be around. But it's up to us, it's our responsibility to make sure that corporations who are doing business, corporations who are running businesses are doing so responsibly, and that they respect the sanctity, the integrity of the environment. Then, of course, there's the anti-war movement in Vietnam. I think that sort of created a culture in this country of forcing accountability. I don't know, considering recent events in 2003, the Iraq War and so forth, I don't know how to rate the success of the anti-war movement, but I can say that there is a culture of pushback. There's a culture, there's an expectation that before politicians take us to war. I think the Vietnam experience is still very much dominant in the public consciousness, that before they take our young men and women to war, that there be a damn good reason for it. And I think that particular code was violated, personal opinion, in 2003. I don't think there was sufficient justification for the Iraq War. And the anti-war movement continues to grow. I think in some ways they're in limbo right now because of, I think, what appear to be differences in how to approach the new president who took office in November, promising to end the Iraq War, but who also, I think, made clear that he was going to focus on Afghanistan. And I do think that we're sort of trapped in a problem that the anti-war movement itself created. I think that I was opposed personally to the Afghanistan war. I thought that the billions of dollars being spent could have been spent really doing human intelligence and breaking down Al-Qaeda from country to country. They exist in 90 countries, and this idea that you can go in one place and wipe them out and wash your hands is kind of is not realistic. But anyway, I think the anti-war movement sort of in trying to justify and explain why Iraq was a bad war, I think unwittingly promoted Afghanistan as the quote unquote the good war. So we're stuck with that position, and it's very difficult to retract from that. But there needs to be a push. I think there's a growing anxiety in the United States. Large majorities now oppose the Afghanistan adventure, and so it's going to be very interesting to see how the president handles the growing opposition, not just from the usual suspects in the anti-war movement, but from the broader body politic. I'm a big fan of the gay rights movement. Notwithstanding, it really doesn't matter, I think, what people's private views are. In any democratic society, people should be accorded rights, and no one has a right to take away an individual's right. To me, it stands as an example of citizens who really also galvanized pushback against the president who had his head, President Reagan back in the 80s, who had his head buried in the sand about this issue for whatever reason. And the really ACT UP was a fascinating organization that really did incredible education around this issue. I think there's a culture now, because of those organizations, this has become much more something that we talk about openly. I think that other people across the world have emulated the ACT UP example in pushing their leaders to accept this as an epidemic such as it is, and to take appropriate action. But I want to spend the rest of the time talking about the two movements that I think in this moment are very critical, which is the healthcare justice movement and the environmental rights, and the immigrant rights movement. Healthcare, the way this debate is transpiring in Washington is it is so corrosive and it is so distorted. And I think that we're asking the wrong questions. The United States needs to enter into a serious debate as to whether or not people have a fundamental right to health care. I don't think we resolved that yet. Momentarily during one of the debates between John McCain and Barack Obama, a moderator asked both of them, do you think health care is a right or do you think it's a privilege or a personal responsibility issue or whatever it was? Barack Obama, to his credit, said no, health care is a right. And John McCain said no, it was a personal responsibility. I was very disappointed that the press never really followed up on that debate, that part of the debate, because I thought it was very, very important for politicians to tell us, explain to us whether or not they believe that this is a fundamental right. And the idea that government is so disdainful, government is so evil, that it has no role to play in protecting citizens on such a fundamental issue is also quite absurd. This labeling, socialism, this name-calling to prevent a legitimate exchange of ideas, a legitimate debate on healthcare is not healthy. Americans every day are properly and well served by the government. The Medicare program, if you ask every senior citizen, works quite well. Social Security, if you ask senior citizens whether or not we should forego Social Security, get rid of it, I think you're going to have a riot. The local fire departments, we don't give people the option to go buy their own private fire insurance. I could say, look, I've got sprinklers in my house, I don't smoke, I'm taking all precautions, there's no chance my house will ever catch fire. So I want that portion of my taxes that pays for the fire department taken off. I'll take my chances with fires. We don't do that. I'll take my chances with police. I'm a careful person. I don't go into bad neighborhoods. I don't need the police. Please, that part of my taxes that's paying for police, I want it back. We don't give people that option because collectively as a society, we have decided that it is important that everybody be insured against fire. We've decided that everybody has a right to security. So we force you, socialism, we force you to pay for your fire department. We force you to pay for the police. We force you to pay for the military. I don't get to opt out. I don't get to say, you know what, I oppose the Iraq war and I oppose the Afghanistan war and I don't want to pay for it. We don't. We're forced to pay for it. Healthcare needs to be treated the same way. I think that it's also, healthcare is a victim of a kind of runaway culture of individualism. This notion that people are just responsible, jog a little bit, eat better, those things are great. But people don't get cancer because they're reckless. They get cancer for several reasons. There are genetics involved. There are corporations that are polluting our air, who are breathing bad stuff, and we get sick. Why is that an individual's problem? So we really need to have a serious and honest conversation about what kind of a healthcare system do we want? And is this a right or is it not a right? And what is the role of government? And is it appropriate for people to make mega profits on the backs of sick people? We're simply not having enough of a debate about that. So I do think that the healthcare justice movement needs to be strong and they need to push back. I personally favor the single-payer approach to healthcare. I do think that the Canadians have it right. Allies of the United States, they're not communists, they're not socialists. Great Britain and Germany and the Europeans, by and large, most of those have a very large government involvement. They've got either single-payer plans or a mix of public-private cooperation, but with a very, very strong government hand. When someone stands to profit from people being sick, they do not have an incentive to pay the cost. I mean, you heard the reports it was a couple of weeks ago, a report out of California that in the past year, insurance companies turned down 47% of the claims. So you do have this tension between profit-making and the legitimate right of people who have paid a lifetime into a healthcare system, who have paid their premium to an insurance company, needing to get healthcare when they need it. Let me move to immigration because it also connects to immigration, to healthcare.